China wanted to take over New Zealand. Is there anything that we could do about it?
Not on our own.
No, definitely
We would
not.
need America.
We would need America to step in. They're very patriotic. They'll fight for their country and they'll fight for their allies just as much as their country, which I'm so glad we are an ally of America. Welcome back to another reaction video. Today I'm super excited because I have my family here. Mum, Dad, my daughter Willow, and we will be reacting to how strong is the United States military. Why is the US military the strongest? I'm super excited because I really love the US military. I've learned about the B-2, I've learned about aircraft carriers, so this one is gonna be a good one to watch. So let's dive straight into it.
Why is the US military the strongest? Great military powers have been appearing and disappearing since the beginning of history. Now is the time for the United States of America to be the leader in military might. But what makes it so powerful? Will its power remain undisputed? Are there already signs of weakness? Would it really stand in a conflict with potential rivals like China or Russia? To find out, we should analyse why exactly the US military is considered the strongest. The numbers. The US has 1,400,000 active military personnel. This figure places it in third place in this category. China has the largest army with slightly above 2 million soldiers, while India comes in second place. This doesn't sound that impressive, but what makes the US military stand out is not necessarily the raw number of men. The US has unquestionable air supremacy. The US military is number one in air power, with 13,264 total military aircraft, a total that is greater than the other 5 greatest air forces combined. 2,085 are air-to-air fighters, 715 ground attack aircraft, 945 transportation aircraft, 5,768 helicopters, and 967 attack helicopters. The US is number one in each aircraft category, except for air-to-ground forces, where it's slightly topped by Russia.
Interesting.
The US has a powerful navy that is designed to work in conjunction with its air forces. It has 20 aircraft carriers, 11 are regular fixed-wing carriers, while 9 are capable of hosting only helicopters and short takeoff planes like the F-35B.
That was cool.
This is almost half of the world's total number of aircraft carriers, while most of the others belong to allied countries. If we take into account only regular fixed-wing aircraft capacity, the total combined deck space of the US aircraft carriers is over twice that of all the other nations combined. To complement this, the US Navy has the greatest number of destroyers and ranks third in the number of submarines.
Interesting. Third, North Korea first.
The numbers of the US naval strength are a bit tricky. If we count the total number of naval assets, the US falls in fourth place, behind Russia and China, and even behind North Korea, that boasts a surprising first place. However, in case of a maritime conflict, it would still be hard to counter the power of the US Navy, supported by overwhelming air supremacy and allied forces. Land power. The US is slightly behind Russia regarding raw numbers. American ground forces number 6,289 tanks, 39,000 armoured vehicles, 1,465 self-propelled artillery, and 1,366 rocket projectors. However, Russia has a lot of outdated vehicles with questionable performance in case of a real conflict. Meanwhile, the US military has a broad technological edge. The US has 5,800 nuclear warheads that make it the world's second largest in nuclear war power. In this video, we're analysing the conventional military strength, but it can't be denied that a nuclear arsenal does bring a certain status. Even if things don't escalate to a full-blown nuclear war, it's intimidating to any country to be armoured with such nuclear power. The quality. The US Army consists entirely of trained professionals, and many have real combat experience. Since the beginning of this century, the US has been involved in military conflicts in Afghanistan, Iraq, Pakistan, Somalia, Libya, Uganda, and Yemen. While other countries still rely on conscripts to fill the numbers, the US can field an army of well-trained, experienced professionals. The equipment, the military assets, and the technology used in combat have excellent quality. This is the defining reason why US casualties are usually fewer than those of their adversaries. A strong ability.
Let's just stop it there.
Impressive numbers. Just the aircraft carrier numbers is way more than any other Air Force, as they said.
You would kind of think that having air capabilities would obviously shows that that's the most important thing in a military. What do you have to say, Willie?
And why is there a boat?
An aircraft carrier, it carries aircraft.
It carries aeroplanes.
That they can go into the sky and fight off the enemies.
Yep.
You can get closer to the strike point and you can just be more effective if you're not travelling halfway around the world to get to your target.
Plus, I do know that it's really hard to land a plane on those ships if you're watching Top Gun.
Yep. Yep.
Very, very difficult. So you've got to be very well skilled in that area.
I like that. I like that plane that just landed like this. What was that? What's that called? But usually they take off like this. That one landed down like this. So that means I'm guessing it could take off like this. But I think another very important part is it showed that I think China and Russia have more numbers on the ground. So they have more. So when you see a lot of those videos with China and them parading their armies, they have thousands of men parading, right? Where America was third in the list. But it obviously shows what's more important is aircraft capability.
What they own.
And what they own. Yep.
Not so much of the
manpower on the ground.
Manpower, that's what is in the air and on the ground
and the water.
In the water.
Yeah, is more important. I guess back in the day it would have been more men on the ground that was more important. So the more numbers you had, was that quite?
Yeah, before aircraft were invented, I guess.
Yeah, it would have been just sheer manpower. But then another thing that's really important is it talked about the quality of these men. I'm pretty sure America have well-trained fighters. So jet fighters, you'd have America at the top. Anything to do with the military, they would be right up at the top. So very interesting.
To project power is another defining trait of the United States military. Size, technology, and experience are nothing if you can't reach the enemy. Power projection is the ability of a state to deploy and sustain forces outside its territory. Only a few states are capable to overcome the difficulties that involve power projection, and the US excels at it. This is made possible by several factors. The home base of the US is safe. The neighbouring countries are friendly. Potential enemies are far away. The large landmass makes it a country that is hard to invade. It also has coastlines along 2 oceans and strategic islands that hold military bases. The US forces can reach far, fast, and deploy great numbers of forces supported by the enforcement of air and sea superiority, combined with excellent transportation capabilities. Even if it doesn't engage in combat, the US can enforce naval and air blockades that can severely cripple an enemy's economy. The US has by far the largest network of military bases operating outside of its territory. Information regarding the exact number and location of such bases involves classified information, so we can only estimate the total extent of the overseas military presence. Back in 2013, the Pentagon stated that there were around 600 military bases overseas.
Wow.
A rough estimate would be around 1,000 overseas US military compounds. Approximately 165,000 military personnel is stationed outside the United States. This doesn't include areas of conflict such as Syria, Iraq, and Afghanistan. The US has significant forces deployed in around 55 countries and autonomous territories. It is also estimated that more than 150 countries have a certain degree of US military presence. Alliances. The United States can rely on a vast network of alliances. It is the de facto leader of NATO, the world's strongest military alliance. 18 other countries are designated as major non-NATO allies. This list includes countries like Australia, New Zealand, Japan, South Korea, Philippines, Thailand, Pakistan, Afghanistan, Egypt, Israel, Argentina, and Brazil. Taiwan's status is a bit more complicated and it can be considered a de facto ally. Some countries are not formal allies but have a strong strategic partnership with the US. One notable example is India, that participates in regular military drills together with US forces and some of its allies. Economy. Modern warfare is sustained in the long term by 2 main factors: the capacity to produce military equipment and the capacity to spend money on defence. American defence companies are the indisputable top producers of weaponry. Among the world's top 10 defence suppliers, 5 of them are American companies. Lockheed Martin is the biggest. It reported a revenue of almost $60 billion in 2019. That's close to Russia's entire annual military spending.
Wow.
The strength of the US
one
military
company.
is also due to its huge military budget. In 2019, spending on the US military was a whopping $732 billion US dollars. That's almost
$732 billion. Look at how much, that's over double. That's close to triple the size of China. My question here, maybe you guys can answer it. With America, 732 to 261, like I understand that it's so important for America to stay at the top, the most powerful. Is that a bit too much in the spending side of things? Or do you think that's okay? What are you guys' thoughts? Like, because that's just, like, you know what I mean? It's just a lot of money going to it. I don't know, but I mean, that's the reason why they have the most aircraft. That's the reason why they exceed in technology. They're able to pump the money in. So, I don't know, that's obviously a really good talking point, but that's close to triple the amount of China.
Well, if they want to be up the top, they've got to spend money.
Yeah, exactly. But that much money? I don't know.
Yeah, well, that's why they've got the flash planes and all those sort of things, aircraft and all that. So, they've got to keep it up, keep it going.
It's very important to stay on top.
Mm.
And, it's a democratic country. A lot of the countries that are, up there in the top 5 are not. And we want a country that respects our freedoms to be on top.
Yeah. When you say it in that way, that obviously shows me like I'm happy. 732, the technology is high. No one's going to mess around with America. Another point I want to talk about is alliances. It's very, very important for New Zealand to be in alliance with America.
And that was quite a lot that was shown on the map.
There was a lot. So you had NATO, and then you had the rest of the alliance, Australia and New Zealand. That's so important because, if China wanted to take over New Zealand, is there anything that we could do about it?
Not on our own.
No.
Definitely
We would
not.
need America.
We would need America to step in. So that's why it's so important, I guess, just talking about this topic, for America just to be at the peak. The more money that's going in, the better the quality, the better people you have in certain parts of the military, the leadership. I'm guessing everything is just top notch, but very good point. Any other points? Willa, do you want to make a point?
I don't know.
Yeah, that's fine.
3 times more than China, the world's second largest military spender, and is roughly 1/3 of the entire world's defence budget. While Russia is commonly regarded as the second most powerful army in the world, its budget consists of only $65 billion. Arguably, there is an aspect of purchasing power. For example, it's cheaper to pay a Russian or Chinese soldier, but the cost of high-quality military equipment is still the same around the world. The reason that the US can afford such an enormous military budget is that it's supported by a strong economy. America has been the world's largest economy since 1871. Its nominal GDP is currently $21.44 trillion US dollars. This is almost a quarter of the global economy, and it's backed with plenty of natural resources, advanced infrastructure, and technology. Besides the ability to sustain an enormous defence budget, the US often uses its economic strength as a weapon by enforcing economic sanctions. Soft factors. Soft power is another factor that comes into play when assessing a country's might. The US is world-beating in culture, education, and technology. American pop culture has an enormous influence, and this won't change anytime soon. America also hosts most of the world's top-ranking universities with a record number of international students. The US leads the world of technology and digitalization as home to the world's most influential tech companies like Apple, Google, Microsoft, and Facebook. It's easy to think that this doesn't seem important in warfare, but imagine an enemy soldier that would have to attack the country where his cousin studies, the country of his favourite music band, the country of his favourite actors from the movie that he watches on an American media platform like YouTube, or an American smartphone with American software. Finally, there is another critical aspect. It is called the will to fight, and this is the single most important factor in war. The will to fight is the disposition to engage in combat, the determination to keep fighting even when facing precarious odds, and finally to win. At an individual level, a soldier with a low will to fight will avoid engagement with the enemy and is likely to flee when things get tough. A battle is won when the enemy's will to fight is broken. Wars don't end when one military destroys the other. Wars end when one side grows weary of fighting, doesn't see any further purpose in the continuation of the conflict, and gives up.
Very good point.
The national will to fight is what keeps a nation fighting. This is commonly linked to a sense of patriotism, national identity, and motivation generated by the idea that one fights for what is right. In the past, this has been a strong point of the US, as Americans have been fighting against dictators and terrorists that lacked concern for human life and dignity. In contrast, the USA has been regarded as a country that embodies values of freedom, democracy, and rule of law. It was the country that defined such values. Even more, it was the country that was willing to fight for these values. The American soldier has been motivated by a sense of moral supremacy rooted in the country's Christian tradition. However, America doesn't seem to be so cohesive in its values anymore. There are many factors intertwined that provoke this. It's a complex topic that deserves a study on its own. But the outcome is that America is now a country that is greatly divided among ideological lines and systems of belief. Many of its citizens are not sure what to believe in anymore, or even what they stand for. There have been many lessons in history. Small nations became great empires by holding high moral standards along with a disciplined and motivated army. A great empire's fall was usually preceded by internal strife and moral crisis. The final story of the United States of America as a global power is not yet written. The nation's strength rests upon its citizens and their decisions. It's a matter of this great nation getting back its cohesion and moral compass. That is, if it wants to keep its status as the world's greatest superpower and defender of freedom.
Wow, that last minute and a half was actually, it took me back to a couple of my videos that I've done in the past, learning about the flag, patriotism. What makes America really, really stand out is, let's say you're going to war against America. You know they're going to go to war for their country. Exactly what they said. To defeat an army, once you take their will to fight for what they believe in away, it's easier for them to win. But with Americans, that's exactly why it made me quite emotional, because it made me appreciate what America is built on and what America stands for. They're very patriotic. They'll fight for their country and they'll fight for their allies just as much as their country, which I'm so glad we are an ally of America.
Well, the last minute or so spoke about divisions, etc., that exist in any free country. There's, people within any country that are creating divisions. So it implied that the US is special in that problem. It's not. We have that here.
But that's actually a very good point that you make too there, Dad, is with America, we just looked at their military. The amount of money they spend on it, the amount of aircraft, the amount of aircraft carriers the technology exceeds everyone. Every single aspect of America is very, very high. They're the best actors, they're the best at technology, best in military. Sports-wise, they do things on a whole nother level. Like, I just watched a video about a stadium that holds 107,000 people.
Actually, that's what I love the most, is that they will die for their country. They believe in it. They're strongly patriotic
Yeah.
in what they do. And I just love, in one of the videos that we did, that they have flags. So that tells me something about America in their homes or at their schools, that we don't really have here. But yeah, it just shows a lot about what they stand for.
Yeah. Well, is there anything that you want to share? Just anything, it doesn't matter.
My tooth is growing and I got another tooth here, another tooth here.
Good girl.
I guess that's why we're an ally, because we have very similar ideals and principles of freedom, and that bring us together with like-minded countries. And that's why over history, over the last 100 years, we've fought together and done quite well generally. Sorry.
I'm glad that America's got our back.
Yeah.
Got New Zealand.
And we've got theirs too.
Yeah, exactly. So that's awesome. Just there.
Yeah, because another thing in terms of alliance, it's a very, very good point you make, because it showed that, because I'm looking at the budget. I mean, does America really need us? Does America really need Australia and NATO? And it's actually yes, to some degree, because it gives them that upper advantage to be able to sort situations out when their ally is right next to them.
But also having lots of little allies like us helps them too, because it makes them more powerful.
Yeah.
When you have all these other little allies around, that's how I see it.
Yeah.
That makes America in a great position.
Yeah.
And there, like if you were to consider what our Air Force would do to actually, in a battle, assist them, it would be pretty much this.
Yeah.
But our moral support
and
speaking up and support when we agree with what they're doing and support them.
It's very important.
That means a lot on the world stage when people are deciding what's right and wrong. When like-minded people stick together and stand up for what they believe in, good things can happen, and most of the time it does.
Yeah. And that's actually a very good point, talking about this, exactly what you said, like-minded people stick together. And we have a lot of values, number one being freedom. Freedom to go walk down the shop, freedom to do whatever you want pretty much on your phone, freedom to, a lot of freedoms.
It's a good point, because, we get people who are negative towards Americans here, but we sometimes have a short memory about what happened in the Second World War. We had bases here that were, Americans were sent from their families to defend us against the invasion of the Pacific, as I understand it.
Yeah.
And so, that's a real debt that we have to not forget. And that a lot of the freedoms we have today are due to
America.
That, those allies of which America was.
So to wrap things up, you pretty much get the main idea here. We're very grateful for America. We're very grateful. That last part, anything to do with the American flag, and because their lives. At the end of the day, when I see those men, in their military outfits, exactly what Dad said. There is a lot of connections with New Zealand, with America, and if anything, we are very, very grateful for those men in the video, because they not only keep us safe, they keep the whole world from turning into an absolute nightmare. If you enjoyed this video and want to watch more videos like this, click here, and if you want to check out my playlist, click here.